right, has everybody got dessert? All right, let's get this show on the road. Somebody clank a glass. Thank you. So, hope you enjoyed dinner. Thank you to the staff for preparing dinner for us. A lot of work goes into putting this event on, and I'd like to thank several people from the VSGA team who did a great job in organizing this. First of all, Kirsten Roberts. She handles all of our dinner. Where's Kirsten? Chris Lang handles all of our press releases and all our communications. Chris Palmer and Anthony Kukos did the website and the booklet, so thank you to them. And then we have three members of the team, Courtney Hamlet, Josh Coates, and Matt Smiley, who are involved in all of our planning, and I'd like to thank the three of them for all they do, too. And I'd like to make a special thank you to my good friend Bob Rich, who you will hear as the narrator on each of the citations for the five inductees. Bob, would you stand, please? We've also I want to thank the members and the staff at Salisbury Country Club for hosting us here. As I said, we sold out. They've done a great job for us, and I'm very grateful to all they did to make this such a nice evening. Several members of the Hall of Fame are here tonight, and I'd like to recognize them. And would you please stand, starting with Mr. Giles, class of 2016, the inaugural class, Vinnie Giles. From the class of 2018, Bobby Watkins. From the class of 2019, Tom McKnight. From the class of 2020, Candy Kessler-Comer. Wayne Jackson. David Partridge. From the class of 2021, Dave King. From the class of 22, Grace Ann Braxton. And Phil Owenby. Thank you all for being here tonight. It means a lot that you're here. To guide us through our ceremony tonight and to get me off this podium, we are very fortunate to have Brad Faxon as our Master of Ceremonies. You'll find a brief biography of Brad in your booklet, but he's been a very successful tour player, having won 8 times on the PGA Tour. He was the recipient of the 2005 Payne Stewart Award, which is awarded annually by the PGA Tour to a professional golfer who best exemplifies the values of character, charity, and sportsmanship. Brad is the second recipient of the Payne Stewart Award to serve as the MC for our Virginia Golf Hall of Fame induction ceremony, as Gary Koch won it this year. So that's a great honor. Before we begin the formal part of our program, we've asked Brad to comment on several issues facing golf today, beginning with his impressions of this year's Ryder Cup. Or not. Brad was a member of the 1995 and 1997 Ryder Cup teams and covered the event this year as an analyst for Golf Channel and NBC Sports, so he has a unique perspective on the event. In addition, you might have heard that he works with several PGA Tour and LPGA Tour members, including the number 2 ranked player in the world, Rory McIlroy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brad Faxon.
Sit down for 1 second. I'm glad you have a nice brother, because he's the one who convinced me to come. Hey, before you sit down, Kid was so nice. He sent me a list of topics to talk about, and normally I would give everybody like
This is not going to be true.
putting tips, and we talk about how to get your game done. You want to talk about roll back on the golf ball and live golf. So
Yeah.
we'll see if we get there. But thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. And, you know, I've gotten to follow in a lot of NBC, my colleagues. You mentioned Gary Koch, Dottie Pepper, who went to Furman. Tim Rosaport spoke here. Terry Gannon, who was great, who I worked with before, is underrated and kind of a stud. But this is a night of first for me in Virginia. I first time I've ever been invited to a Golf Hall of Fame induction, so that's cool. But my first cousin is from Alexandria. My first daughter went to UVA. That's kind of my first qualifying for the PGA Tour back in 1983 was in Fredericksburg.
Sure.
That was kind of cool. I was so impressed with the course, they tore it down and put condos up. My first sports psychologist was Bob Rotella from Charlottesville. First time I played in Williamsburg was the first time I realized the Amazon goes up into Virginia. Best place I'd ever been. So thank you for having me. And you know, when you brought up Rory McIlroy, I think what's kind of cool about the story with Rory, I live down in Jupiter where many of the tour players seem to live because it's a great place to live. And I've been playing and doing some television, and Rory lives near Seminole. And every year Seminole, which is one of the most well-known courses down anywhere in the country, but in Florida, they have a very famous pro scratch. I don't know, Bobby, if you ever played that or if you played it, Robert, but Rory plays with his dad every year. His dad's a member now. And Billy Andrade, another golfer from Rhode Island, and I had a celebrity golf tournament in the CVS Charity Classic that we had done for years. And we really wanted to get Rory to come play. And this is right before COVID. Billy and I were playing in the afternoon that day, and we wanted to go meet Rory after he had finished his round and invite him to play in our event. And if you haven't met Rory, I don't know what your impression is about a person, but it's better in real life than it is on TV. He's just like the most genuine person I've ever met in my life. Father's great, from Northern Ireland. And Billy and I went up and did our pitch. Hey, in June, right after the US Open, we'd like you to come play. Like all great players, they don't say no to your face. You know, it usually comes somehow from the agent later on, doesn't it? So Rory was great. And as we were standing up by, the pool was still there, we were watching Adam Scott getting ready to tee off. And Adam Scott, who has probably one of the best golf swings in the history of the game, makes this really odd, funny practice swing. And if you follow golf enough to know who George Gankis is, he's an instructor that Matt Wolf taught, and club kind of goes in a lot of different directions on the way back. And Adam Scott makes this practice swing, and Rory said, God, he got a lesson from George Gankis last week. Can you believe anybody would mess with this golf swing? And then we watch Adam Scott stripe it down the fairway, and Rory said casually, when I hit a driver, I don't think about an effing thing. It was very funny, and we kind of went on and went to play our day. And I was still playing a little bit on the Champions Tour. There was a tournament a few weeks later in Newport Beach, California. And on Saturday after the round, I was looking at my phone and I got a text from a 561 area code. And it said, hey, Brad, it's Rory McIlroy. Is there any chance you can watch me hit some putts on Monday at 4 o'clock? I'm going to be going up to Bay Hill that night. I'd love to have your advice. And I'm like, wow, Rory McIlroy wants me to help him with his putting. And I had helped a few tour players, but it wasn't like an official hanging a sign outside. And I got really nervous, and I texted him back. I said, what time? He says, 4 o'clock on Monday. Now, I looked at my plane. My reservation was to fly home Monday morning, and you could fly nonstop from LA to Fort Lauderdale in JetBlue, and they had this Mint class, and back then it was cheap and affordable. And I'm like, I'm going to have to change my flight to get back by 4, and nobody likes a red eye, so I changed to the red eye. LA had to probably connect in Dallas to get to Palm Beach, and knew this was going to be terrible. So I called my wife, honey, you know, I'm going to come home tonight on the red eye, tomorrow night on the red eye, instead of taking the nonstop. She goes, why? She goes, well, Rory called and wants a putting lesson. Oh, so you'll come home for Rory? Yes, I will. And for 3 consecutive years, Rory McIlroy was outside. It's unbelievable when you think about how talented some players are. Outside of the top 150 in putting stats, which is, it's hard to believe that a guy that had won 4 majors had gone to a putting coach that couldn't get him inside the top 150. And, you know, as I was preparing to go over to the Bears Club where he played in practice, it was a very windy day that day. And I had my backpack, because all cool coaches have a backpack, and they have an iPad and maybe some other stuff and I'm kind of like nervous, because what am I going to do to say to this guy and catch him, so I can get his attention? And I'm thinking of all the things to start with, and we go and he's having tea in the locker room. It was Monday. It was very close to the Masters, and Jack likes to, shade the greens down so they're very fast. And my heart's racing. We sit down. I don't have a tea. And Rory, we're at Seminole a month ago. You said when you hit a driver, you don't think about it effing the thing. I said, would you be okay if you had a great round putting or a great week putting and you didn't know what you did? He goes, I would kill for that. And I said, I got you. So I have this philosophy that it's supposed to be easier than harder when you play. And we go out to the putting green. Like I said, it was windy. And he said to me, if you weren't here, there's no way I'd practice putting today. It was just too fast and the wind was blowing too hard and there was nobody there. It was probably 2 o'clock, 2:30. And I started to watch him hit some putts. I'm videoing these putts, and the iPad, this thing has great cameras now, and I'm watching and doing the thing down the line and from face on, the caddy view we call it. And I'm noticing that he looks like he's reading an instruction manual. Like everybody's played this game where you've had a lesson or two, and you start thinking about how to do it. Keep it slow, low. And I could tell he was like, it just didn't look like it was. His stroke looked fine mechanically, but it just looked like this was taking a little bit too long to do. And I videoed him. Then I started talking about. Actually, before I said much, I said, "Let me see you hit a few putts with some different clubs." So I gave him a sandwich, and all of you that have played, that have tried to belly your 60-degree when it's up against the fringe maybe, or used a hybrid sometimes, because Tiger made that famous in 1997 at Congressional. And then I had him putt with the toe side of his putter. And when he did that, he didn't take as long. And he just kind of looked, and the putter flowed nicer, and it was like interesting to watch. And there was one little thing that he did when he was putting with different clubs. He had a little tap with his right thumb. It was just a little trigger to start a stroke. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And then I went back and I showed him. I said, Rory, here's your putting stroke with your putter when you're before we talked about anything. Here's when you're looking at the hole and just letting things kind of flow a little bit. And I said, there's a big difference in the amount of time. And it was almost a full 2-second count where he was still. And he looked at it, he goes, well, I can see a difference. And I kind of like this idea that in golf and in putting, the subset of golf, putting, that there should be continuous motion in your routine, your pre-shot routine when you're over the ball. So when you watch great players stand over the ball, their feet are usually moving. A lot of times full shots, you see the heel and the toe lift off the ground. You see the fingers wrapping around the grip, the waggle of the club, or a lot of times the butt end of the club goes forward of the ball as the club goes back, and players are moving, looking at the target. And Rory had none of that going on. So when I showed him the video with the other clubs versus the putter, he goes, ooh, I got it. And to make the long story short, two things happened. Bud Cauley, another tour player, came out to practice putting. He went to the other side of the green because he didn't want to bother us. And 5 minutes later, he left. He goes, this is worthless. It's blowing too hard. I'm not going to practice out here. And Rory kind of got the hang of this a little bit. And then we decided after an hour or so to have a putting contest. And he goes, God, I never thought we'd do this and have a putting contest. And go, isn't that really the essence of what we used to do as kids? And I said, when's the last time you had a putting contest? He goes, oh, easy, 2010 in June. I'm like, this was 2018. And I'm like, how do you remember 8 years ago your last putting contest? Oh, it was against Tiger Woods at Pebble Beach during the U.S. Open. I said, oh, did you win? No. So he was mad about that loss to Tiger. And I said, all right, so we were playing this game. We had 2 holes, and we were putting. I was putting from one hole. He was putting from the other. This is great practice if you like to get better. And you putt at the same time. So the balls are passing each other, and you play to 5 aces. And when you make an ace, when one person makes an ace, you both have to switch sides and putt in the other direction. And the only stipulation, and this was something I learned from Rotella years ago, I used to do with Davis, you probably did it with us, was you're not allowed to take much time. It's kind of a look and shoot sort of thing, like a good free throw shooter. And so we started doing this, and the holes were cut far apart. They weren't close enough for this to go quickly. And it was windy, and leaves are wrapping all over the place. But I got off to a pretty good lead. I was up 4-2, and I decided to mouth off. Hey, when you go up to Bay Hill this week and you win, you're going to tell everybody that Brad Faxon beat you at a putting contest. And he kind of smiles and smirks a little. He makes 3 of the next 5. So he beat me, and he hugged me and he said, I'm going to win Bay Hill this week and tell everybody that I beat you in a putting contest, which I thought was pretty cool. And one of the things that I said to Rory while we were sitting inside was, listen, I'm never going to say anything about what we've talked about. I think it's between you and I. If you want to say anything to anybody, then I'll comment on what you said, but I'm not going first here. And I think he appreciated that because he had a contract with his previous coach, Phil Kenyon, who teaches everybody, he's a smart guy. And Rory made a couple decisions by himself that day. He'd gone from a 33-inch putter to a 34-inch putter, one that he had used to win his 4 majors. And he says, do you think it's okay if I switch back to my 34-inch putter? Now, I haven't spent 5 minutes with him. I think that's a good idea. And that next day, he showed up the next morning. Phil Kenyon was standing there by his bag and said, why'd you switch putters? And I'm like, oh boy. And he went on to get off to a quick lead. He played with Adam Scott, believe it or not, the first 2 rounds. And he was in 6th or 7th place, but he was hitting the ball all over the place and still scoring, which is kind of cool in this game, right? It's a good part of the game, right? You don't always hit it your best. And it was probably the first time in his life that he had shot a better score than how he hit it, right? At least in the last 3 years. And we all know what that game is like and what consistently good ball striking can do to make your putting difficult. And the stats on tour show that players make the same length putts for par a lot more than they do for birdie. So is that a stroke thing or is that a mental thing? So yeah, so from 8 feet is the distance where PGA Tour players average 50%. But the stats don't always show if they're for par or birdie, but every player knows they make more of those from par. Why? Are you more dedicated? Are you more committed? Are you angrier? Because it should be a harder putt because you don't want to drop a shot. Or do you treat those birdie putts like, I don't want to screw up? But anyway, Rory went on to win the tournament by 4 shots on my dad's 80th birthday. So it's a pretty cool start to a relationship that's lasted nearly 6 years. And last year, I'm proud to say, he was 22nd in the world in putting. So that was kind of a cool moment for me and for him. And he's still as nice as he's ever been, and being able to watch him get better and better. I think he's going to win a major this year. Now he hasn't won one in over 9 years. I don't think it has to be the Masters to get him back where, that would be the career grand slam if he wins this Masters, and he and Spieth are really players that have a chance to complete that this year. But I think it'll be easier for him for his career. He's only 34. Who was it that never won a major before? He was 34. Van Houten, right? He didn't win until he was 34 a major. And he won 7, 9. I think it would be hard not to talk a little bit about TV career when you go from playing to doing television. Robert worked 7 years, did you say? 7 years. In 2010, I was just about to turn 50 in 2011. I got an offer to go work for NBC. And as Vinny, you know, Tommy Roy's been the producer there forever, and he's kind of crazy. He's loud inside. And people ask all the time, you must get a lot of help on what to do and what to say. And I'm like, no, you don't get any help. And so the first tournament of the year was Doral. NBC does the Florida Swing. And back then it was called the WGCCA, Computer Associates Championship. And it was one of those events that didn't have a cut. There were 72 or 78 players. And, I did the new guy on the block thing. I got down there on a Monday night. These tournaments, I didn't remember or know that there's no pro-am, so players don't show up really to Tuesday night because they had played the course so often and so many times that they played on Wednesday. So I showed up Tuesday, I saw 6 out of the 78 players. Wednesday, I saw a lot of the players. We had a production meeting at 4 o'clock, and I quickly learned that there were rankings as far as the broadcast team, and Dan Hicks was the lead host with Johnny Miller. Gary Koch was on the 17th hole. Peter Jacobson was on 15, and the low man on the totem pole is always furthest from the clubhouse. And I was back there on the 14th tower, and it's not glorious, it's not glamorous. It's a plywood structure with rebar or something, and there's little TV monitors, and you look at 4 monitors because you have 4 holes. In this particular week, I was covering the 5th, the 9th, the 13th, and the this 9 by 4 is 13. It had to be 14, and yeah, that's it. So I have no idea what I'm doing the next day. I have really no idea. So I go into Tommy Roy, and I said, Tommy, what do I do? He goes, just be yourself. I go, okay, great. So how does this work? He goes, well, number one, he gets a scratch piece of paper. It's an envelope, the back of an envelope. He writes number one, no shit rule. I go, Tommy, what does that mean? He goes, don't ever say anything on TV that's going to make the viewers say no shit. And can you give me an example? He goes, well, a lot of times when Frank Novelo's saying, Ernie L's sitting at chip shot, he says, here's the ball, it's rolling and it's stopped. The TV shows that. You got to add something other than what the viewer can see. And he said, by the way, you can't say sand trap, you have to say bunker. You can't say pin placement, you have to say hole location. You can't say hazard, you have to say penalty area. There was all these different terms that we would never talk like that in your own foursome. So that was it. You're gone. Bye. And so we start on Thursday, and then the first 2 days, Thursday and Friday, whether it's NBC or CBS, Golf Channel televises this, and Johnny and Dan don't work till the weekend. So we had Kelly Tillman and Frank Novelo, who are great. And here we go. We're off the first hour, first 15 minutes. I don't say a word, nothing comes to me. And then as we're at break, he says, Brad, we're going to come back. We're going to show Ian Poulter's shot on 9. Now, if I knew what I was doing, if I had been told, you're supposed to watch your monitors because you can see the players on your hole, we're going to come back with Ian Poulter's shot. You're going to say, while we're away, and you have to say the name of the tournament, where we are, and what the players' stands at this time. Oh, my God. And then I hear a woman's voice in my ear where the headset, 30 back. Now, I think that's a TV show, right? And now it goes to 15 back, and Tommy starts counting down from 15 backwards to 0. And at 6, he's going 6, 5 to Brad. Brad, big welcome back. Big welcome back. So now live to you, Poulter, while we're away. So I go, big welcome back, I said. While we're away, Ian Poulter for his tee shot here on 9, par 3. He's got a 5-iron. It's 172 yards dead into the wind. He's 1 under par. And now you're supposed to stop talking before impact, which I didn't know. And he hits his shot. They show it in slow motion, land right on the green, about 3 feet from the line. He said, a beautiful shot to 3 feet. Now, this is the first time on television. What do I hear? No shit. Oh my God. And after he says no shit, and he goes, now Poulter for birdie. So I go, now Poulter for birdie. And he says it again, second time, and he makes this putt. Now he goes to 2 under. Now, for some reason, players start on both the first and the 10th holes, and then they turn. I thought he was done. And I go, beautiful round to 2 under par 70. And he shot 34. Now my headset explodes. He shot 34. So anyway, it gets worse. Later on that day, Robert Allenby was playing the 12th hole. The 12th hole is one of my holes, the par 3. No, I'm sorry, 13th hole. The 13th hole, if you've ever been to Doral, you know how impossible that hole is, Bobby. So by the way, only 9 players in the history of the PGA Tour have played more PGA Tour events than Bobby Buckets, 715, and he's kicking his brother's ass. 715. How many seasons did you play?
Too many.
That's pretty good. You should see the names that are behind them. So anyway, Allenby's hitting this shot on 13, and a lot of shots we show live, and a lot of shots we show taped, a lot of shots we show that are taped that we pretend are live. So, and you never know that. And when Tommy Roy comes to tell you that it's a shot on tape, he might say your coverage, and I never knew what that meant. So we're showing Robert Allenby, and I think this is a live shot. Allenby's hitting this shot with a 5-wood on the 225-yard par 3, 13th. Wind's off his back. I say, tough shot, and I said, it's the hardest green on tour regulation to hit. Well, he hits this beautiful shot, lands on the front of me, rolls, goes in for a hole in one. And I'm going crazy. And I'm like, this is great. So now when we go to commercial break, and my whole team says, "Oh, way to act, way to fake it." And they knew it had gone in, and I didn't. It gets worse. So now we come to NBC, and the big boys roll in, and Tommy says, "Look, I'm going to put you on camera in all the tournaments what we do for NBC. Tommy Roy likes us to wear coat and tie, even if we're in the rat trap of the towers up there and the plywood, no air conditioning in Florida." So we go, and he says, "Brad, we're going to show you on camera. We're going to tell everybody, you're part of the NBC broadcast team, that you got to do a hole in one your first week on the job." I thought, this is great. So I called all my buddies at home and said, "Hey, they're going to do this really cool thing. Put me on camera." And one of my buddies has I might offend some people here. I'm not trying to, but he had a hunting lodge in Alabama. From Rhode Island to go down and go deer hunting was a big deal for me. I'd never shot a deer, and I go with this group of guys, and I got a buck on my first thing. So I know that's not what everybody wants to hear, but it's sport.
You're in Virginia.
So right. So I'm going to tell them about this shooting the buck on television. So I'm going to tell my friends. So they come to me, show this thing, and Dan Hicks introduces me, and I'm part of the team. I'm so excited. It's kind of like you get a hole and it's luck. It's the first time you get to, it's like shooting the big buck on, the first time you go hunting. Oh my God. So now, after the round's over on the TV compound, and I get this one. So I go back to the office where I saw the first envelope, and he says, "Did you have to say you shot a deer? Could you say you caught a fish?" And we had PETA calling all day. So that was my start in TV, and I got fired after that year. So I made it for a year, and got hired back last year. It's been a great. This is for you. Now, Gib really wanted me to talk about. The USGA came up with an idea a few years ago to roll back the golf ball. The ball's going too far. Courses are obsolete. This has been obsolescence has been around for 100 years, right? It's been around forever. And we're going to bifurcate the game. So the golf equipment that you use is going to be different than the equipment the golf professional can use at the elite level. And the elite level was hard to define. Is that going to be PGA Tour? Is it going to be Korn Ferry Tour? Is it going to be elite college level golfers? Is it going to be LPGA Tour? And they decided, no, the LPGA doesn't have a problem. So it's not going to be for the LPGA Tour. So they basically said, you're not elite, right? If it's elite golfers. So that ticks a lot of people off like me. But, so I just here's some stats. And I think this is real, this is fact. Every single one of these things are fact. In the last 20 years, the Pro V1 was introduced in 2000, end of 1999. Scoring average has not changed in 20 years at the elite level. It has not changed on the PGA. It's not gone up. As a matter of fact, several years it's gone up. The average PGA Tour playing length on tour is 7,241 yards. So in the last 10 years, it's only changed 40 yards. Why do we need 8,000-yard courses? The closest to 8,000 yards that we played was at Erin Hills when Koepka shot 18 under par. The shortest course we played in the last 20 years in the US Open was Marion in 2013. Justin Rose won over par. The longest player on the tour driving distance 20 years ago was Hank Keeney, 321 yards. Remember Hank Keeney? This last year, Cameron Champ, 321 yards. And the average world ranking, this is my favorite of the stats, of the 10 longest players on the PGA Tour, the average world ranking, the top 10 driving distance, is 135th.
Wow, that's amazing.
You want to go next? I know you gave me a couple other topics. Potential talk. Ryder Cup was one. Live. I think Ryder Cup. We need to talk about Ryder Cup. Live. We can do after we do the introductions of all the honorees tonight. We can go into the lounge and talk if you want to do that, or we can talk about putting, which would be much more fun. I've said to a lot of people, and I think most of the people at the table tonight would agree that the American team was instantly dislikable this year. They haven't won the Ryder Cup overseas since 1993. We had a great guy named Zach Johnson who was our captain, who picked a lot of the same assistant captains like Davis Love and Fred Couples and Steve Stricker and Stuart Sink and Jim Burke. And Paul Azinger was the captain back in 2008, and he came up with the concept of let's create pods through it from a Navy SEAL friend. We're gonna have pods. We're gonna have 4 players that are gonna play together in the different formats in the matches. And Bobby, your brother Lanny was the captain in '95.
Yep.
He put all of us together, and we didn't have a name for a pod then, but we played like players and like games to play in the different formats. So I don't think that was new. And I think what Azinger did is kind of hurt us going forward, because now we think we have to be best friends to make a great team. And Azinger was a controversial pick back then to be captain. The president of the PGA of America was a guy named Roger Warren, who was from the Sanctuary down in Key Island, if you remember Roger Warren. I was on a plane with Roger going to do something for Titleist, and he asked me, the president of the PGA of America every 2 years gets to pick the captain. And he said to me, I don't think I'm going to pick Paul Azinger. Azinger had won a PGA championship, and none of the captains in history on the American side had ever been picked without having won a PGA or a major. And I said, why aren't you going to pick Paul Azinger? He said, well, the last 2 years of the PGA, Paul destroyed the courtesy car. He broke the window of the driver's side 2 years in a row because he missed a cut. And players get mad. I mean, we do silly things. And he said, we're never picking him. So we picked him. And then he came up with pods, and now he's written a book about his captaincy, and it worked. And he won. It was in Kentucky, right? At Valhalla, and we had, Blue Weekly riding us a broom. We had some strange things happen. But after we got destroyed a few times, they came up with an idea for a task force to put all these players together and parts of the PGA America PGA Tour to pick the right captain. And that captain had to come from being an assistant captain previously so they can learn it. And my point to Roger Warren was, if you care about winning the Ryder Cup, why do you have to have a new captain every year? Why can't you pick one person to make that his job? Well, that's a ridiculous idea. We've always done it that way. I said, again, why do you care if you win it? He got offended by that. I said, no company would hire a new CEO every 2 years just to do it or pick it. You wouldn't do it that way. But we're stuck in that. And this year, I think it's gotten us in more trouble. And we hadn't won in 30 years. And Luke Donald shined in the opening ceremony. She spoke Italian, which was kind of cool. The players were dressed in Laura Piana stuff. We had polo. I mean, they crushed us. The golfers, they were over $1,000. But I thought he did a nice job. That they get media training, all the players, the captains, what they're going to say, how to answer the tough questions. And what they did that I thought was really interesting is they changed for the first time in 30 years the format to go 4-ball, foursomes first, 4-ball second. And the last time they played that way was 1993 when the Americans won in away soil. Now, Zach Johnson, the captain, had 6 players automatically qualify. He had 6 players picked, right? Some controversial picks. Justin Thomas was 74th on the money list. He picked Sam Burns, who was friends with Scotty Scheffler, so they could play together. He left, I don't know, Lucas Glover off the team who had won 2 of the last 4 tournaments. Keegan Bradley, who had won at Hartford at the end at the Travelers, who was just rare. He would have, swam over there to play. I left Cameron Young out there, who all the statistics guys said he should play based on the course here, how he hits at tee to green. And, they didn't do it. They picked Ricky Fowler. And the captain's picks this year were 4, 12, and 5. 4, 12, and 5 in the matches. So the captains didn't do a very good job. But when they switched the format, I know Zach Johnson was going to put out Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth, 2 buddies that have done very well in Ryder Cup, in the first 4-ball match. But they didn't do it. They put foursomes out first. So that played the hand back to Zach, who set them for the first matches. And I think they really needed to send a message and put Justin Thomas, this most controversial pick, maybe in Ryder Cup history, out first, and they sat him. And then when they played the next matches, they lost. So I think the whole way the Europeans did this, they played 2 weeks prior to the Ryder Cup at the tournament in England at Wentworth at the BMW. All 12 of their players played. 9 out of 12 finished in the top 20, and 9 of our top 12 took 5 weeks off. So how does that make sense to win the Ryder Cup away? And of course, that not one of our players had played in a competitive tournament before. If you're a captain, you don't do that. And I think the captain's power has been stripped by the fact that he has 6 best friends as assistants, or 5. And the PGA America is kind of telling them what to do. They're like little puppets. It's really disappointing. It's very hard to win away. We know that the records for both players, both teams, is much better at home. But we're getting destroyed. And we kept falling back into it's never been closer in the locker room than this team was this year. And close, that doesn't necessarily make to win. I was lucky enough to play golf a few weeks ago with Dan Marino. And Dan Marino helps the Miami Dolphins with the quarterbacks, the schemes they have, watching film. And they have maybe the fastest receiver in the NFL. And you guys know his name?
Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill.
Right. And you know what Dan Marino said? Tyreek Hill barely shows up for practice. None of the players like when he's in practice because he doesn't do anything the coaches said, but when the game starts, he's the guy they want out of the field. We need to find who those guys are out on the field. And the fact that the captain has 6 picks, it's hard. I mean, I believe in a just system too. Some of the winning is important. It's hard to win on the PGA Tour. And how we don't let guys that won twice in the last 4 weeks, like Lucas Glover, get out there, and it gets very tricky and puts more pressure the more picks you have. So we can solve these problems later on, but I think more people are here to talk about all the honorees tonight. So I'd like to do this, and Kurt, thank you for having me be part of this. I mean, I've seen a lot of people here that I haven't seen in a long time, both Bobby and Linda. I know Vinny and Key from Florida. Vinny, you know, your record is outstanding as an amateur. I first saw your name when I was growing up in Rhode Island at Wanawaysit, where you won the 1971 Northeast Amateur at Wanawaysit. I saw those names up there, and man, they were all great players. I know you put your name on the mahogany in a lot of different places. Congratulations. I saw Rob McNamara. I know Candy. I didn't know you. I knew you as Kessler first. And Grace Ann, you're my favorite so far. She just finished 2nd in Germany for the 5th time playing. So I didn't know anything about this. At Salisbury Country Club, it was founded in 1963 on a site with a rich and fascinating history. I'd encourage you, you have your books out there. Don't do it now while I'm talking. To read more about the historical significance of the Salisbury site. The present central section of the Salisbury Clubhouse was designed along the lines of the original Salisbury Hunting Lodge built in the late 18th century. So there's a lot of history here. Salisbury features 27 holes. I got tempted to go play, but you wouldn't let me play. Along with a magnificent practice facility, and your brother was out there in his Furman purple shirt. It's been a friend of both the Virginia State Golf Association and Middle Atlantic PGA over the years, hosting multiple VSGA championships and an annual sub-regional qualifier for the National Drive Chip and Putt, which has become one of the most watched events of the week at the Masters, to watch these kids go out there for the national championships. We thank the members of the Salisbury staff, which you've already done, including the GM here, Evan Sherwood, Director of Golf, who I met today, Mike Hott, along with the clubhouse manager, Jan Jordan, and event coordinator, Ian Kobayashi, for their hospitality this evening. I know it's hard to feed a room of 100 people with 3 different types of food, but great job. Information on tonight's inductees, along with those inducted in previous classes, can be found on the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame website, a place you can visit from anywhere in the world, right? Virtually, cool. The mission of the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame, and I like this saying, is captured in the phrase, recognizing excellence, honoring heritage. Tonight we'll do exactly that. The Virginia Golf Hall of Fame opened its virtual doors in 2016 at the Omni Homestead Resort. You made everybody stand up, but I think it's worth saying again. People ask all the time, what's the most nervous you've ever been in your life? That's a common question a PGA Tour player gets. In 1984, my first year on the tour, that was me. Rory, stop it.
Rory's calling.
I was hitting balls in the practice, one of the practice rounds, and there was some commotion near where I was, and I'm hitting balls, and I'm a rookie, just looking all around, and I see this guy behind me, Sam Snead. And he's got his arms crossed like this. He was with Bob Toski, he was newly on the Golf Digest staff, and he said, "Let me see you hit some balls, young man." Oh my God. Sam Snead, best swing in the world. I played a lot with Curtis early on. Lanny, as I said before, was the captain of the 95 Ryder Cup team. I don't know how many assistant captains he had. I think it was Wilski and you. Was Bruce there?
No,
Oh, it was just you.
just me, yeah, and I didn't get a Rolex either.
Did you just drive around in a cart with everybody?
I did,
I mean,
Snickers and rain suits.
we never hoped or wished we could have another assistant captain. It was just perfect the way it was back then. They're all World Hall of Fame, Golf Hall of Fame. Vinny, you're the only amateur in history to win the U.S. Amateur, the British Amateur, the U.S. Senior Amateur. Pretty darn good, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Chandler Harper, a legend, was a major champion who was an institution in the Portsmouth golf scene until his death at the age of 90 years old. Playing golf to live longer. Clyde Luther was one of America's most renowned experts on the rules of golf and a past president of the VSGA. Together, those 6 players formed an impressive inaugural class. Behind me on stage, you see the photos of every inductee, and you stole this idea, you said, from the Payne Stewart Award. And you'll find their names at the back of your commemorative booklet. And as we embark tonight on inducting our 7th Hall of Fame class, 8th Hall of Fame class, wait, because we had a COVID year, right? I'd encourage you to visit the Golf Hall of Fame website to learn more about the members who have been inducted. Tonight we unveiled a wall featuring the inductees of the class of 2023. How about that? You'll find more information on each inductee in the booklet at your tables this evening. If you've not already done so, you will also notice that some of the members of the hall have already signed their names, so you don't have to stand in line after dinner to get them, right? All right, so here comes the good part. Switch to that. And excuse me for 1 second. Got it. All right. Let's start with Jim Kite.
At one time, Pepper helped shepherd Jim Kite away from competitive baseball and into the business of curing hams. And from there, a golf career was born. Baseball was Jim Kite's first love. He helped lead Fork Union Military Academy to the State Military Championship in 1950 and pitched for the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He spent time in the New York Yankees farm system, but his baseball road ended in New Orleans in the 1960s. With Kite struggling on the mound during a game, a fan in the stands suggested Kite, "Give us a break. Go out and earn an honest living." So he did. Using his father's secret recipe, Kite started a ham curing business. In the 65 years or so that Kite's Hams has been in existence, production has grown from curing 400 hams per year to now curing nearly 18,000 hams annually. As his business grew, Kite found a competitive outlet in golf, where he earned some predictable nicknames like Ham Man and Ham Bone. There was nothing funny about his game, though. Kite won plenty on his own, including a victory in the 1978 Virginia State Golf Association Mid-Amateur Championship, 3 VSGA Senior Stroke Play titles, VSGA Super Senior Amateur, and Super Senior Stroke Play titles, and advancing all the way to the final match of the 1987 U.S. Amateur Championship. Kite is closely tied to another of tonight's inductees, Bob Moyers. The pair partnered to win 5 straight VSGA Senior 4-ball titles from 1991 to 1995, a record that still stands. No other side has won more than 3 in a row. As former VSGA Executive Director David Norman noted, those guys were tough, unflappable, and essentially unbeatable. A founding member of the Green Hills Club in Standardsville, the Ham Man from Wolftown is a worthy inductee of the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame.
Fantastic. And kites, Jim's going to come forward. You've been presented with Kites Hall of Fame certificate. Virginia Golf Hall of Fame is proud to induct Jim Kite as a member of its class of 2023 in recognition of many years of excellence and outstanding contributions to the game of golf in Virginia and beyond, presented on this 24th day of October, 2023.
So I'm Anne, the youngest. We're very honored that you're recognizing Dad for his contributions to the game. He enjoyed golf for many reasons. Being outside, being with his friends, being at peace, meeting new people, talking to animals. I remember Dad hitting golf balls from our house in Wolftown, Virginia, over the road to Aunt Clara's Hill. And I would, from the time I was small, I would just sit there with Dad while he would, I could hear the stroke and I just knew, knew the sound. And then we would get on the golf cart and ride over. And it never occurred to me that he could have missed and like hit a car. But he didn't. He never missed. It just flew over to Aunt Clara's Hill, and we would go over and pick up the balls, and then go pick wine berries, and then come back. He enjoyed people. He never met a stranger. He loved nature, the mountains, the birds, the animals. Once in a tournament while he was putting, a butterfly flew in his line of sight, and he picked up his putter and jokingly played with the butterfly. And that's a picture that was put in the newspaper. There are stories that there was a pet squirrel at some course that he went to that would come out to greet him, and I would bet I can hear him talking to squirrels right now. There's the sounds. Dad was very successful, but if you didn't follow him, you may not know. Mom later would find trophies on the table. He wouldn't walk in the house with them. She would have to say, "How did you play? What happened?" to coax it out of him. Instead of speaking about his game, he would talk about what a beautiful day it was, how his friends were, who he met, and how many deer he spotted on the course. There was one day that he did actually speak about his game. It was his birthday. He was late 60s, maybe early 70s, maybe 70. That day he shot his age. Everybody was rousing him about how old he was, and that day he shot his age. So he liked that one. His purpose in each day was to make everyone else's day a little brighter or a little better. He enjoyed seeing other people smile, and he enjoyed seeing other people laugh. The time he spent on the course, he was known to appear relaxed, laugh, and to make others laugh. You can see how golf was the perfect sport for my dad. He was able to meet lifelong friends, to make new ones, to be outside in nature, to play a sport he loved very much. Thank you so much for recognizing my father.
I'm sure everybody thinks about how they started the game of golf, and most people, many people here would be introduced by their dad, as I was. I was also man. Our next inductee, I played a little bit of golf with him when I first started, Bobby Mitchell.
At the Mutual of New York Tournament of Champions in 1972, Danville's Bobby Mitchell gave a memorable quote in his post-round interview after shooting a second-round 65 to take the 36-hole lead. He dubbed himself Golf's Invisible Man. Mitchell's gripe, a national national magazine cover that displayed 1972 Masters champion Jack Nicklaus, along with two of the runners-up, Bruce Crampton and Tom Weiskopf. The third runner-up? You guessed it, Mitchell. Nowhere to be found. I told them I felt like I was invisible. Mitchell recalled in Jim Duchabella's 2000 book, Par Excellence, a celebration of Virginia golf. Mitchell got the last word that week, sinking a birdie putt to defeat Nicklaus in a playoff to win the Tournament of Champions. The ensuing issue of Golf World gave Mitchell his due, featuring a photo of Bobby with the headline, "Underrated no more, Bobby Mitchell, Giant Killer." To the people of Danville, Mitchell loomed large. Born in nearby Chatham, Virginia, on February 23, 1943, Mitchell began his professional career at age 15 after learning under the tutelage of legendary head professional Al Smith. Mitchell went on to a long professional career that included regional success in Virginia and the Carolinas and a pair of PGA Tour wins. The second place showing in the Masters in 1972 was his best finish in a major. His play on the famous par 3 12th hole at Augusta National probably cost him the title that week. He played it in 6 over par over 4 rounds. Afterwards, he lamented, "If I could have made a few pars on that hole, I could have won the Masters. My life would probably have been a lot different." Mitchell continued to impact golfers deep into his life. In 1991, he taught the sport to young people in Finland in association with Harvard University. Mitchell died in 2018 at the age of 75.
Harry Lee is here. He was the former Union State Golf Association president back in 1987 and 98, a lifelong friend of Bobby Mitchell's. He'll come forward and grab the certificate.
Thank you. If we'd have the, thank you. I'd like to ask the Mitchell family, Bobby Mitchell Jr., Wayne Mitchell, and the granddaughter, Amanda, to come up and receive the plaque. And while they're doing this, I thank you for having us. I always open with a little bit of levity on what's going to happen. I've been talking to a bunch of my friends here, and I didn't realize how many people I would know, but there's a great number of people that we're great friends with over the years. And somebody asked me, "How's my game?" I said, "Hell, I'm still a scratch golfer." And said, "How do you scratch?" I said, "Well, I write down my good scores and I scratch my bad ones." So, I appreciate Ann Grieven as being the president of the VSGA, and welcome, Ann. Bobby died, it was a great friend of mine, but Bobby died in March of 2018. He had heart disease, just a slow decline in his life. His wife, Dorothy, is not here with us tonight. Dorothy had a stroke about 1.5 years ago, so she's not able to be with us. But tonight, representing Bobby's family are his 2 sons and his granddaughter. Bear with me for a second as I go back to the old times. If you might remember, golf in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it wasn't as affluent as it is today. Those professionals playing in those days weren't necessarily welcomed into all the clubs, particularly back in the 30s. Golf was a lot different. The likes of Palmer and Nicklaus and Player and all made golf a whole lot different and became a lot more affluent as time moved on. But Bobby moved into golf in the early 60s. Bobby stopped school in the 8th grade. He lived right beside the Danville Golf Club on a street called Hunter Street, which we affectionately referred to as Gobbler's Knob. But Bobby was, loved golf. He came to the golf club, and how he started playing golf, and this is, sort of hard to believe, we had caddies. And Bobby would be out in the caddy lot with a soda bottle and a golf ball, and the caddies would be digging a hole around a tree stump here, there, and they'd have 4, 5, 6 holes. And that's how they would start playing golf. They just loved doing that. Well, we had a really great mentor at the Danville Golf Club, Al Smith, who won several Virginia State golf opens. And Al took Bobby under his tutelage, and Bobby just absorbed golf like a sponge. Bobby moved into the pro shop, learned how to wrap clubs, regrip clubs. Bobby could play golf left-handed as well as he could play right-handed. He enjoyed immense success at a very early age. Now, bear in mind, Bobby did not have the education that a lot of these people had, or tour players had, in going to colleges and having all the tutelages and having all the agents and the money. Bobby did this all on his own. But Bobby went out, as you can see by the record. He won 2 Virginia State Opens in '65. He won the Carolinas Open in '67. Won the Cleveland Classic in '71 by 7 shots over Charles Coody. Finished second in the Masters, though he wasn't mentioned, in 1972. Nicklaus won. Bobby finished second along with Bruce Crampton and Tom Weiskopf. But Bobby was never mentioned. And Bobby played number 12, as we said a little earlier, in 6 over par. It could have been a real different story had number 12 been a little more favorable to him. But, you know, Bobby never took that in any way to be anything other than that's what the fate of golf is. What a nice person. Bobby's success as he went up the ladder didn't change him. And as he came down the ladder very quickly, that didn't change him also. He was just as nice a person. He was humble. He was unpretentious. Would be willing to help anybody play golf, learn how to play golf. In the latter years of his life, Bobby decided to go to Finland, representing Avery College, and he taught in Finland probably for 15, 16 years, and did a fantastic job over there, and brought many really good players to Avery College. And Bobby has been a pleasure to know and be around. I just say, you know, one thing about Bobby was his attitude all the time. No cursing, no profanity. He was, if he didn't play well, he wasn't happy about it like none of us are, but he didn't grouse about it, and he wasn't unpleasant to be around. Bobby, to paraphrase, like I think Bobby Jones once said, golf and the game of life are a lot alike. You hit a lot of good shots and get a lot of bad breaks. You hit a lot of bad shots and get some good breaks. But the important thing is that you play life or the game as it lies. And that's Bobby Mitchell. And I appreciate the opportunity to be in here. And I thank you on behalf of the Mitchell family for receiving this award. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Well done. I mean, my experience with Bobby was you could never tell in the locker room what he shot. And I think that was always a good indicator of what kind of a person a player is. And they didn't wear it necessarily on the sleeve on the bad sides. Our next inductee is Bob Moyers. Unfortunately, he had to leave tonight. So his daughters are here. We'll have them come up after we see the video.
It's rarely said that life starts at age 55, but in terms of Bob Moyers' impressive golf career, the statement is accurate. Moyers won 13 Virginia State Golf Association championships, all coming after he was eligible to compete at senior events. A professional career as a manufacturer's representative took him to Texas for many years and prevented him from competing in as many championships as he would have liked. Once life slowed down, his golf game picked up in a massive way. In a 5-year span from 1991 to 1995, Moyers won 9 championships, a force of senior golf rarely seen in Virginia. Moyers teamed with fellow 2023 inductee Jim Kite to win 5 senior 4-ball titles while adding 4 senior stroke play titles of his own during that time. That's not to say that Moyers wasn't a strong player earlier in his life. Moyers was one of 4 members of the inaugural men's golf team at Bridgewater College in 1956. A year later, the team won the Mason-Dixon Conference title. Moyers also won the prestigious Ken Ridge Invitational at Farmington Country Club in 1985 with a total of 206, setting a 54-hole record at the time. Inaugural Virginia Hall of Fame golf member Vinnie Giles remarked that Moyers is one of my favorite characters, a wonderful man, husband and father, a great competitor. I love playing with him and spending time with him. He's as good as it gets. Added David Partridge, another Virginia Golf Hall of Famer who played with Moyers, a true gentleman with an engaging personality. Bob was a superior ball striker who parlayed his dominant tee to green game to establish a prolonged standard of excellence in senior golf.
Yeah, the grand here in second half of
Did you say Jill and Jan?
Did I not say
No,
that?
that's okay. She's older though, so I'm just saying.
I was gonna say it was alphabetical, but that's not right. That's not right. Who wants his mic?
Oh,
Who
Jan,
looks like to
my
talk?
sister gets over. Oh, sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here to accept this for Dad tonight. He did have several things that he did want to say to you all, and my sister is going to tell you what he was going to say.
Okay, so when he first found out that he had been elected into the Hall of Fame, he was very humble and he had tears in his eyes. And he just could hardly believe it because he just had such an amazing life and amazing career. And
Right closer.
okay, so he had had such an amazing career in golf and he just humbled him. And then a friend of ours that's here, Ray Sillenberg, was over at our house and he said, Ray, what's the most important thing in golf? And I could tell what was going through Ray's mind. Left arm straight, your right arm tucked in, slow backswing. But Dad goes, it's the friends that you make from all over the country. And he said, he never, ever could have imagined that he would have had that chance. And the third thing that he said that was kind of funny to my cousin, Brad, he said, yeah, it's just not, when Brad said, congratulations on getting elected into the Hall of Fame. Now maybe we can get you into the Bridgewater College Hall of Fame. And so he said, yeah, I just can't even believe they were able to keep me in this small little town. And so then so really, this goes along with the third thing. Whenever I said, Dad, what an amazing group of people you're going to be connected with for the rest of your life. And I was naming a lot of you, and he said, that's really incredible, but I never backed down from anybody that I had to play against. And so my sister and I were always out there following him most of the time. So we come from a long line of alcoholics, so thank you so much.
Virginia Golf Hall of Fame proud of Bob Myers. Incredible. I love what you said about friends. I mean, think about all the friends you made in this game, and the friends that you've kept because of this game. No other sport can do what golf can do. Um, our next inductee is Tom Barry.
The testimonials tell the story. One calls Tom Barry a prince of a human being. Another says Barry is a walking lesson in how to treat others with dignity and class. A third notes he treats every single person with kindness and respect. The longtime head professional at Jefferson Lakeside Country Club, now known as Lakeside Park Club, had that sort of impact on folks. Always quick with a handshake and a hello, Barry was easily recognizable at the club with his jacket and tie, which helped him stand out from the crowd. Originally from Waterbury, Connecticut, Barry's career at golf began in Illinois at the age of 13 when he joined the caddy ranks at Cherry Hills Golf Course. From there on out, he worked every summer at the golf course before turning professional in 1973. Barry served as an assistant golf professional at Flossmoor Country Club in Illinois from 1973 to 1980. And in 1979, he earned his PGA membership. Barry's first head professional job came at Oregon Golf Club in Illinois in 1981. And in 1983, he moved to Virginia to work at Jefferson Lakeside, where he served until his retirement in 2019. Upon his arrival in Virginia, Barry became active in the Middle Atlantic PGA section. The MAPGA has recognized Barry with numerous awards, most notably 3 Horton Smith Awards for Excellence in PGA Member Education, the 1992 Bill Strasbaugh Award for Service to Fellow Members in Employment and Club Relations, and the PGA Professional of the Year Award in 1994. The Virginia State Golf Association presented Barry with its Service to Golf Award in 2012. Barry has also become well known for his rules of golf expertise. After attending many PGA USGA rules of golf workshops, Barry became a go-to resource both as an on-course rules official and off the course when fellow PGA members had a rules question that needed confirmation or clarity. Beginning in 1990, Barry was one of the core teachers in the MAPGA VSGA Rules of Golf program in Virginia that Virginia Golf Hall of Famer Clyde Luther originally developed. In 2014, the MAPGA bestowed its highest honor on Barry, inducting him into the section's Hall of Fame.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Barry.
The Virginia Golf Hall of Fame is proud to induct Tom Barry as a member of its class of 2023 in recognition of many years of excellence and outstanding contributions to the game of golf in Virginia and beyond.
Presented on this 24th day of October. Tom, congratulations.
Thank you, Brad. Bill, thank you. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the warm greeting and being here this evening. Congratulations to my fellow inductees into the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame, and also to the previous individuals who became members of the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame. Thank you to Salisbury Country Club for hosting this event, and the selection committee for all their diligent efforts. My career as a PGA professional began in June of 1973. I worked for a gentleman named Dave Ogilvy, who was a third-generation golf professional. His father and his grandfather came from Scotland, were PGA professionals, and he also had an uncle who was a PGA professional. I worked there through 1980, from 73 to 80. And then in the winters, what I did shortly after Labor Day, I would write letters to facilities in warmer climates to get a job, because there wasn't any golf up in Chicago in the winter. But anyways, I was very fortunate indeed, because I got to work for, a gentleman named Ben Roman, who was at a golf course called Harder Hall in Sebring, Florida, which is probably 50 miles south of Orlando. And I worked for him for 3 winters. At Harder Hall, they had a pretty prominent ladies event there. They played 72 holes stroke play, and it was usually in the second week of January. And I guess one of the draws for that was if the players who had good finishes, they would get Curtis Cup points, and hopefully that would lead to a spot on the Curtis Cup team. So, in 1983, I was very fortunate. I came to Virginia, and I interviewed and was hired for as the head golf professional at Lakeside Park Club. And several of these years later, I was very fortunate. I met and married my beautiful and talented wife, Michelle, who had a favorable influence on my life ever since then. And her family was just here with me tonight, was very supportive of my golf career. Late in the 1980s, I got involved with governance and with the MAPGA, and I started by serving on the educational committee of the Virginia chapter of the Mid-Atlantic PGA. And I had recruited 2 speakers that I think were I thought were very good. Number one, I got Bob Toski came, and he spoke at one of our seminars, and he was great. He was very knowledgeable about the golf swing, and he was a very well-renowned player, which a lot of people didn't know. And also, he was very entertaining. He made his presentation very, very informative and and helped us all know a little something about the golf swing. The second person was a lady named Ann Dozer. She was the tournament chair for the Richmond Women's Golf Association, and she went on to be president of that organization later. And she was a little reluctant to come and speak at one of our workshops, and she said, well, what would you like me to talk about? I said, well, I think we need to hear from a female how me and my fellow professionals need to things that we can implement that will make the ladies playing at our facilities more enjoyable. And she said, okay, I can do that. And then she was tremendous. She talked about scorecards, golf course setup, merchandise you should carry on the pro shop, and she was terrific. She was very, very well organized, respectable player, and you know, she was very friendly. You know, she made everybody in her company feel welcome. And I was very glad to have both those speakers come and share their ideas with our professionals. Um, I am grateful to my wife, the administration at Lakeside Park Club, as well as my staff who afforded me the time to pursue my service in both governance and rules officiating. My attraction to the rules of golf began when I was working for Dave Ogilvy in Chicago, and he was the tournament chair of the Illinois section. And what he did is that he was kind of a one-man gang, and he's always looking for help. And he brought me along, and I said, when do we need to go? He says, tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., I'll meet you in the parking lot. So, okay, and he taught me a lot about, tournament, running events and officiating, and just making sure that they run efficiently. And it kind of, the tournament golf was kind of infatuating to me because, if you're playing an event, you want to go out there and play the best you can, but which is very good. I enjoy playing, but as far as being an official or an administrator at an event, you've got you wear a different hat. You've got to make sure that certain things are in order and that you want to look out for the players. As one person told me, nobody bought a ticket to a tournament to watch you give somebody a two-stroke penalty. So, but it was good, and I was very fortunate when I came to Richmond that I could continue in that vein by being a rules official. And I need to commend the people from first of all, the VSGA, Clyde Luther, Dr. Lou Blakey, and Galen Hill, as well as the entire VSGA staff for being very gracious and sharing their knowledge and expertise. And in my fellow professionals in the Middle Atlantic section I need to recognize as well. Carl Rasnick, Frank Arocco, Jeremy Greiner, and the entire Middle-Atlantic PGA staff as well. It was great that all these people shared their expertise and helped me, and I really enjoyed it because you worked like a team. You helped somebody had a problem, they would call on the radio and you try and get somebody out of a jam if they don't have the answer. So, well, thank you all for being here, and thank you for the award, and good golfing to everyone.
Fantastic, Tom. Tom, I was lucky enough to get a lesson one time from Bill Strasbaugh, who was at Columbia Country Club,
wow.
legend, always wore a seersucker and bow tie.
Oh, yeah.
This is what he told me. He says, Brad, 90% of the golf swing is in the setup, 6% is in the takeaway, the rest is in the Lord's hands. It's true. Tom Barry is it. Next inductee is Peter McDonough.
The role of golf course superintendent has evolved over the years. It's much more than overseeing growing grass, mowing greens and fairways, and raking bunkers. The best of the best are environmental stewards. And Peter McDonough, the recently retired superintendent from Keswick Golf Club, has been a guiding light for environmental projects and issues in Virginia for more than 30 years. McDonough was at the heart of the behind-the-scenes work that went on, communicating on behalf of his peers to legislators to educate those in government on the issues that superintendents face. McDonough spearheaded and managed the creation of the Virginia Golf Course Superintendents Association's Environmental Best Management Practices Manual. Virginia GCSA Executive Director David Norman noted that McDonough was not simply a superintendent leader, he was a golf leader. When a major drought in 2002 threatened the industry, McDonough united VSGA, MAPGA, GCSA, and Club Managers Association and worked out a solution to the problem. The solution was a concession to allow watering sparingly at night to keep grass alive while minimizing strain on water supply. Eventually, McDonough's influence led to economic impact studies, nutrient management planning, and the hiring of a lobbyist to work with the government on behalf of the region's golf course superintendents. McDonough arrived in Virginia in 1991 for the Arnold Palmer Golf Course Design Company's redesign of Keswick. He remained there through his retirement, where he also saw the transformation of Palmer's old Keswick layout to Pete Dye's Full Cry course. The crowning moment of his career came in 2016 when the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America honored him with its President's Award. Though retired, McDonough's impact is still felt at golf courses across Virginia.
Ladies and gentlemen, Peter McDonough. The Virginia Golf Hall of Fame is proud to induct Peter McDonough as a member of the class of 2023
In recognition of many years of excellence and outstanding contributions to the game of golf in Virginia and beyond. Presented on this 24th day of October, you're the first superintendent. Yeah. of the Golf Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Thanks, Brad. Gib, thank you very much. Obviously, the first people I'd like to say thanks to right out the door is the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame. I wasn't expecting the call. Actually, Gib calls and he's talking to me, and I'm like, okay, I'm retired and I live at the beach, and I got my flip flops. I'm out in the ocean. He's like, hey. So I pick up the phone. He said, "You're in the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame." I said, "Oh, I'll get back to you. I'll wait at the moment here, and so I'll make it work." I'm gonna get this out here, but that was quite the treat. I'm gonna go through a couple of things. Again, we want to keep a lot of the science stuff pretty light, so let's stay there. But I started a place called Pleasant Valley Country Club as a caddy, as a boy. It's a small town in Millbury, Massachusetts, Sutton, Massachusetts. And it was a great place to caddy. And I learned a lot about, I just was enamored with the tournaments. I was like, that town is a very small town. If you've ever been near Sutton, Massachusetts, it's like nowhere. Paul Harney was the director of golf at the time, and he knew a lot of folks, and he got people in. So it got me hooked. And then the superintendent yanked me out and said, "Why don't you come out and work for me?" And talked me into it. And off to school I go, and enjoyed it. So my first job out of college was going to Las Colinas and at the Byron Nelson Classic, and at the time. So I ended up becoming gopher for Mr. Nelson. So I had to go get Mr. Nelson at his ranch, pick him up and drive him. So the first time I do this, Mr. Nelson just trying to be as nice as he can. He knew I was fresh out of school, long way from home, and he was being considerate, and all I could really stammer out was yes sir, no sir. So I get him in the cart, I got him on the golf course, taking him where he needs to go. Still asking me, nice questions, and finally says, "Son, stop the cart." I said, "Yes sir, Miss Nelson." He said, "Son, you seem awful nervous." So I said, "Well, Mr. Nelson, I'm from a real small town. I've never met anybody like you." And he just said, "Well, guess what? I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you. So why don't you just relax?" He was like an incredibly great man. And one of the other big lessons he taught me in life was, when I asked him, he said, "What do you need to be learning out here?" And I said, "I'm young, keep my head down, ask a lot of questions, pay attention to what's going on." And he says, "You're only as good as your last day." Tell you what, for over 40 plus years later, you're only as good as your last day. And it sticks with me forever. I mean, it was something special. But then I ended up going to work for Arnold, you know, and that was its own entourage and machine, to say the least. It'd be an understatement. But the biggest thing with Arnold is, as everybody knows, when you have your 15 minutes with Arnold, it's something you talk about for a lifetime. I mean, and there's nobody who doesn't say that. I mean, it makes you feel like the most important person in the world. As I say, he's the coolest man, or, you know, cooler than the other side of the pillow. I mean, this was the guy, you know, and so he was very nice. And the funny part about that too was, he says, calls me in the office and says, you know, with Ed Say, who was the CEO of the design company, said, Peter, you going to Charlottesville? And I said, well, North Carolina's pretty cold, Mr. Farmer, because we were living in Florida at the time. And so he says, it's Virginia, it's colder, and you gotta like it. And, you know, and so I stayed put for 31 years, you know, at Keswick, because, you know what, that's a great place. If anybody's been on Route 22 drive from Keswick to Gordonsville, it's the prettiest, some of the prettiest part of Virginia you'll ever see. And some of the most fantastic homes there as well, you know. But that was one of the most, you know, the thing is, I went back this past week to Keswick, and I got to, you know, get on the course, ride around, look, and everything that the Robert and Molly Hardy have done with Keswick, if you haven't been there, is unbelievable. I mean, it's fantastic. They really did a great job. And it was nice to see Rob McNamara and Troy Fink, Troy the superintendent, Rob's the GM there. And the work those two are doing, the tweaking that's going on, and the things that are changing. If you haven't been, you need to go. It's just unbelievable, and I couldn't be prouder of what's going on. You know, the other part too is working with Pete. You know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Well, deal with Pete. You know, everybody's had to deal with Pete. He's a handful. And then some, but you know, he tried to make everybody relax. One of the better stories he had was in the first meetings is that, you know, he was talking about Casa de Campos. He said, so he got the job, flew down there, they gave him, they said, okay, Pete, here's 400,000 acres, put the golf course anywhere you want. Said, have at it. And so he said, fine, great. About 9 months later, he says, they call him up, need to see him. Goes back, goes to the office, says, hey, what's up? We're making good progress out here. And the guy looks at him, he says, was 400,000 acres not enough? Pete went, huh? Yeah, you're building on someone else's land. And so the whole point was, is he goes, I make some pretty big mistakes too. So everybody just worked together. So he was quite the lesson in it. But one of the reasons, again, that I'm here, obviously, is to, you know, putting the Virginia Golf Course Superintendents Association, 5 chapters together. To me, I knew that we were going to have to be dealing with regulatory issues at some point in time. It wasn't really heavy at the time, but all of a sudden it went from 0 to 100 before we knew what we were doing. And to be quite honest, when you think about putting something together, you wonder if it's the right thing to do. Well, in a couple of years after the association, Governor Warner puts the 2002 drought on, and the top of the list was golf courses. Unbelievable, unbelievable. How is golf generating that much water use that we're at the top of the list? So I realized right then and there that we needed to, you know, participate, get involved, and, you know, got down there. Funny story, I knew that much about legislation stuff. I mean, 0. So what I do was Labor Day weekend, I had like 200 calls. I wonder if its association is relevant. General managers, owners, superintendents, what are we doing about this? What's going on? I said, okay, I got to figure this out. So Tuesday morning, I go down and I go to the governor's mansion. I got to see the governor. I said, there's a problem here. Now, and of course, I mean, I knew nothing. But anyway, they steered me over to the Natural Resources Committee, and I got into a meeting, and I was able to, you know, plead our case about we need a little relief here. But the bigger part of that benefit was getting put on the Drought Committee, writing water regulations for Virginia. And the bigger part of that for me was getting to meet someone that's mentored me in the arena of politics is Donna Johnson. She's right over here. I'll tell you, that lady, everyone in this room, you can't say thank you enough. Not even close on how much she's helped all of us, and I mean myself personally. The neat part is we have a great relationship with our husband and wives. I'm truly great friends for the past many, many years. But she said, look, if you're in it, then you're going to get in it. And put me on a lot of technical advisory committees, writing regulations for fertilizer, water, pesticides, you know, the whole thing. And which kind of led up to the point of, you know, the executive order in the Chesapeake Bay, which is going to be a model for the country to do. So that's when I said, okay, we got to get this best management practices thing under control. Because when I watched Ag in Virginia, BMPs was the language. It was how the state looked at it. Because we always tell people there's no such thing as a golf course committee in General Assembly. No one's going to listen to what we got to say. You know, they just don't want to hear it. So we got the whole BMPs program, and actually GCSA used ours as a model for the whole country. You know, so then they put that golf 2020. They wanted the golf to be done in every state, having BMPs for every state in the country. So I think I'm pretty proud of how that all came out for all of us. Let me take a peek here. I think that yeah, the two parts of the debate came out is that we helped advance the bill with Governor McDonald, which we agreed to nutrient planning, which I think is an extremely big deal because it really demonstrates we're right up front about what we're doing. And the other one, I actually need to take my glasses off because it's worth reading. Hold on 1 second, I can't read without them. So Governor Northam has to report to the EPA about the status of the Chesapeake Bay modeling. And he puts in it, this was a couple of years ago, Governor Northam would like to acknowledge the initiative taken by the members of the golf turf industry to meet the highest environmental protection standards. And, you know, I speak at a lot of national conferences. I speak state, local, regional, and I always finish up with top that.
Yeah, awesome.
You know, so we've set a pretty high bar, a really high standard. And I just think it's the right thing to do, and what's the right thing in representing our industry as being the best land stewards, you know, bar none when it comes to managing our golf properties. Like I said, I'd like to make sure we're leaving golf in the best place moving forward because the new guys coming in, there's more regulations coming, and I think we've put up a pretty good network of how to make it work and how to make it happen. I also have to thank a couple people. Larry Mraz, who was my assistant for 34 years. You don't get a better guy who works for you for 34 years, who was a Vietnam veteran, POW, rock solid. I could leave, and I knew things were going to get done. Didn't have to think twice about it. And of course, the other one I have to thank is my wife, who really allowed me to get out and do my thing, because she's the best. Thanks, Deb. I love you. So I just, it's a great profession. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Thank you.
If you're bored in retirement, you can go on a speaking tour. You made me want to say two things before we close out the evening. You mentioned Byron, oh yeah, look, Byron Nelson and Arnold Palmer. Anybody that met Byron Nelson was treated by the nicest man I've ever met in my life. And the tour championship was in Oklahoma in Tulsa at Southern Hills in the mid-90s. And I finished second to Tom Lehman that year. Not that this story is not about me, but I did an interview with Brent Musburger, who worked for ABC. And, you know, you're happy to finish second in a big tournament like that. And about a week later, I got a letter, handwritten card with Byron Nelson's stationery on it. It said, "Congratulations, your week. I watched your interview on TV. You're a fine man." Now, who writes that?
Wow.
Who writes any letters anymore with it?
Yeah.
Inked pen. And then Arnold Palmer. First year on tour, everybody has Arnold Palmer story. They played with him or met him. My first year on tour, back when we had rotary phones, and we cut at the Players Championship, and we had to call in to get the tee time. Remember, there was no websites, and you called the desk at the Marriott there in Sawgrass, and the woman answered the phone. I said, "My name's Brad Faxon. I'm at, I think it was 2 over par, 214 or 216, 218, whatever the number was." And she looks down the list. She goes, "You can play at 10:23 tomorrow with Peter Jacobson and Arnold Palmer." So I was 22 years old. He was 55. And I'm so excited I couldn't sleep. And I knew Peter pretty well. He was an easy guy to get to know early on. And get out to the range about 2 hours early. We're hitting balls. We're excited. We get up on the first tee, and there was a nice crowd there. And Arnold had on his alligator FootJoys, and you only got those if you won the major championships. And we all smoked drives down the first hole, and we got out there, and Arnold was like 3 yards farther than Peter and me. And Arnold says, "I'll go out there and I'll go up here and wait while you guys hit." Hit it on the green. We all made pars. We're walking back to the second tee. And Arnold, he had no idea who I was, put his arm around me. He said, "Son, do you want to have a long career out here?" I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Palmer. I'd love to have a long career." He goes, "Well, do something then. Look people in the eye. These spectators, these fans are the reason why you have a job." Wow, that's a life lesson right there. So as we went on, and the tournament was one of the most popular tournaments, biggest purse, and we got around to that famous hole 17, the Island Green, and Arnold had a reputation, didn't he? And there were a lot of fans following us, particularly a lot of women. There were 4 women after we hit our tee shots onto the green that were following Arnold for most of the day in sundresses, and I'm laughing because Arnold's kind of going like this. And I said, "Arnold, hey, back there on number 1, didn't you say to look him in the eye?" He goes, "You know what I mean."
So I remember that. How about, let's give one more round of applause to everybody here for the Virginia Golf Hall of Fame class of 2023. Please look for the announcement of the class of 2024 next spring, so you'll have your faces up there with the other, what do we have, 32 names up there already. You're all invited to join us before last call for a post-reception drink here at the East Cedar Lounge. I called it the Big Cedar Lodge before. Thank you for being here. Time off sake. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that. Thank you. Congratulations.
Another song story. On 13 or 14, we had done summer in Texas. We played in Austin, Dallas, several places this summer in Austin. And so we have to go to the bathroom.
I'm apparently, I hadn't seen you in here. Yeah,
So we got a napkin and everything. Guys,